Today we will show you how to paint young red dragon from Nolzur'S marvelous miniatures. Hey guys, this is Nisa from Den of Imagination. I have a tutorial on pro level for you. It's going to be young red dragon from Nolzur'S marvelous miniatures, and it's been painted by one of our painters Agnieszka and narrated by one of our painters Agnieszka. So prepare your stuff and enjoy the tutorial.
Alright, because this model is primed with light grey color, first what we decided to do is to mark the shadows and the violet parts of the wings. Acrylic paints depend very much on the color of an underneath layer, so if you want your model to be very bright, just use like shade of primer and the colors automatically will get more vibrant, and vice versa. If you want your colors to be darker, then it is better for you to choose dark primers. And that is why for the first color we chose Hex Deletion, which is a very deep shade of purple. Thanks to that, regardless of the bright primer, we can still achieve a very dark shadows. Apply it on the wings and on the places that we want our shadow to be the darkest. Violet color will give us a perfect undercoat for red color that we will add later. Now it is time for the second color of the undercoat, which is Hull Red from Model Color series. It is not an airbrush paint, but we can easily turn it to one by adding the airbrush thinner. So if you have colors that you would like to use by your airbrush but they are not airbrush paints, just add thinner to it and you can use any paint that you have in your home palette. So how you do it? Just apply a little bit of thinner into the jar before you add your paint and mix it. By controlling how much thinner you add to the paint, you can make it more or less dense. The density of the paint really depends on your preference, but you have to remember that the paint cannot be too dense. Airbrush is built in a way that inside of it you have very narrow canals. Dense paint would clog it sooner or later, specifically that acrylics dry very fast. So that is why the air paints are prepared to have less pigment and more medium, and as such be more liquid. That also means that they are more transparent, but it really makes a little difference while painting with airbrush. So start to apply the second color on the places that are not covered with Hex Deletion, except the chest. Chest will be painted with lighter colors, so we need light surface as an undercoat. If you are not sure with your aim, you can always cover the specific parts of the model with paper towel, so you will not overpaint specific areas. But in the same time, while we are putting first colors, we do not have to be that careful about not crossing the colors together. More important is to cover the surface of the model completely, so there is no white spots looking through our layers. So now that our base coat is complete, we can start to build the right tension of the main color. This model was originally designed with very deep shade of red. To achieve that color, we will use two different types of red, and first one will be fire red. It is an air paint, so we do not have to add that much of the thinner or even no thinner at all. I will use this opportunity to explain how you should properly change the colors. We just finished painting our model with Hull Red. First what you need to do is to drain the paint from the airbrush. After that, fill the spot with clean water and drain it again. Repeat the process couple of times. You can check it if the airbrush is clean with the paper. If the paper remains clean, then you can apply another color. With Fire Red, you do not have to cover the same percentage of the surface that we did with Hull Red. Focus more on the places that the light reach on directly. Try also to still avoid the chest area. With acrylics, sometimes to achieve certain colors or shades, we have to layer the different paints. Some colors can emphasize one another, and some are not very compatible. For example, the best shadow for red is deep purple, blue or cold green, but the same deep purple may not be very flattering for some shades of beige. So you should try out beforehand on the paper if the colors that you want to use actually fits to one another. Sometimes it is also the case of the brightness of the colors and the size of the model. We need to check if the difference between the brightness of the colors are not too great. On some models, especially on bigger ones, it is better to build slow transition between one color to another. So when you choose the colors for airbrush, choose the color for shadow, color for the light, and the color in between. Second shades of red that we will apply with airbrush is bloody red. The same as with Hull red, it is not an air paint, so remember to apply the right amount of thinner. Apply this color only on the highest parts of the body, like the peaks of the wings and top of the head. So while painting, try not to shake your hands too much. On this video we speeded up the tempo, but in reality the movements of the hand are very gentle. Try also to keep the airbrush in one position, with 45-degree angle. It is the best position for the airbrush that allows the paint to run smoothly, and it is less likely that the paint will get clogged inside or that it will go backward inside of the airbrush, what can be very problematic while cleaning the airbrush at the end of the day. With this step, we do not have to move our model too much as well. Concentrate yourself on the parts that are visible while the model is standing in one particular position. That allows us to recognize how the model will look on the board and what parts are the ones that we need to take care the most. While dealing still with larger surfaces, try to avoid painting with narrow stream. While controlling the trigger of the airbrush, try to create wide and delicate mist. It is the best way to paint large areas without destroying the details of the sculpture. Now, as you can see, our red is getting really beautiful and deep, and we can move to another step. It is time to create shadows on the wings for them to look more dimensional. So take dark Prussian blue, and after mixing it with thinner, use it to create lines inside of the folds of the wings. You may also add it underneath the wings and in some corners of the red body to deepen our shadows if we think that they are not dark enough. But be careful! Dark Prussian blue is a very strong color that can easily dominate others. So apply that knowledge while controlling their airflow and try to make it more narrow and more delicate than the one that we used for the previous steps. Now we will turn to lighter shades. Take paper towel and cover the part behind the horns of the dragon. Of course, clear the airbrush before you will use brown rose. Try to clean it as best as you can. Cleaning airbrush is even more important while you are changing the color from darker to lighter. The best way to understand it is when you're using white. White color can catch even the slightest remains of the previous paint from the jar and immediately change the shade, becoming no more clear white. So if you would not clean your airbrush properly while changing the color from darker to lighter, you may end up with color that is shade or two darker that you planned or have kinda dirty look. You can check your colors on the paper before you apply it on your model. We are using brown rose not only to create highlights, but also to prepare the surface for another color. So apply it on the tips of the horns, but you may also add it on the places that you would want to be brighter, like the main bones of the wings, the inner sides of the legs or muscles, on the arms and tights. With brown rose, paint also the chest of the dragon. It will allow us to clear the chest area from any additional color that we had painted while dealing with the previous steps. Thanks to that, we will still have light and even surface. We do this because later we will use even lighter colors, and as we said, acrylics can change their color according to their undercoat. By using brown rose first, we are building safe surface for brighter colors to stay clean and light enough. Next is dwarf skin to make the color of the highlights more fitting to the color of the dragon body. Dwarf skin will actually give us more red-friendly tone than grayish-pinkish color of brown rose. And yet, the lightness of brown rose allows the dwarf skin to be brighter than the shade we would get from applying it on the deep red directly. Let me also explain why we are checking the colors on the paper every time before we apply it on the model. Thanks to that, you can check if the consistency of the paint is correct and if the flow of the air is smooth. With airbrush, very often you can experience the paint to get clogged. So with you checking your paint first, you can at least be sure that the clog will not end up on your model. It is very important, especially for lighter colors, because their pigments had this tendency to be thicker, and while painting give us a dusty effect on the model. To avoid that, you may add more thinner to the paint, and also to clean the head cap and nozzle from time to time. While using the paper towel to cover the model to not overpaint other parts, try for it to stay clean. Dirty paper may sometimes mess with the surface of our model, especially if it's still wet in some places. Now for the last airbrush step, take deck tan and apply it as the last highlight for the chest and the most visible part of the tail. Remember that with brighter colors that are not from Air series, it is safer to add more thinner for them to get through the inside channel of the airbrush easier. And that's how our model look after airbrushing. Now what is left to do is to add some details with the brush. We will start with the dry brush. Take white brush size 6 and orange fire from Game Color series. Put some of it on your palette and dip the tip of your brush in the paint. Be aware that your brush have to be completely dry. As a technique, dry brush is based on a single rule that the bristles of your brush are completely dry. So do not use water before you apply the paint on your brush. If your brush is wet, it is better for you to wait for it to get completely dry or to take another brush. So now take a little bit of the paint with your brush and then wipe it out on the paper towel. When the brush starts to leave like a mist effect on the towel, you may begin. Next, take your model and start to gently brush those areas that are painted with the red color. For violet parts of the wings, we will use different colors. While dry brushing, use the side of your brush. Slowly start to build the color on the chosen places. With the dry brush, the gentler the movements are, the better and cleaner the effect is. So try to be as gentle as you can. In the beginning you may not see the effect right away, but be patient. The color will appear soon enough. The effect is also more appealing when the color of the dry brush is building itself gradually. It looks more natural. After this, take white brush size 10 and red ink. We will cover our dry brush skin with it, not only to have the medium color of highlights, but also to add more fiercer red to our dragon skin. Of course, you can use a smaller brush, but because of the large surface of the model, it is easier to wash it with the bigger brush. The size of the brush, while washing, may have a lot of influence, especially that wash is a technique when quick movements are sometimes crucial. Because we build the orange layer with dry brush after applying red ink, we will achieve a specific shade of red that will be perfect middle tone for our next layer of dry brush. By mixing those two techniques, you can easily create steady transitions of highlights, and you can go that way with the rest of your models. Ink work very familiar to washes, but are stronger in color. It is really something in between wash and air paint. By applying it with a brush, you can get really interesting results. They can be also very handy while glazing. Because they are thicker than washes, yet still very transparent, you can use it as a final touch to align the color of the surface of glaze. So take red ink and gently apply it on the skin of the dragon. Do not be afraid that you will overdo it. If you think that you've put too much of it, clean your brush in water, dry it out on the paper towel, and take off the excess of ink from the model. After giving the model time to dry out, it is time to apply its second layer of dry brush. So take again white brush size 6 and orange fire and repeat this step of dry brushing. And remember that your brush needs to be dry. Now we will take care about the wings. Take Magic Blue from Game Air series and wide brush size 6. Put some of the paint on the palette, dip the dry brush in the paint, wipe it out on the paper towel and use dry brush on the violet parts of the wings. You also may be asking why we are using the air paint for dry brush. Well, we wanted to show that although this paint may be more liquid than ordinary paints, you can still use it on every technique. Sometimes some shades and colors are available only in particular series of paints, but it doesn't mean that you can use them only for chosen techniques. You may use every one of them in the way you seem proper. So now cover the wings with this color evenly. Next, take Alien Purple. Put some of it on the palette, dip the tip of your brush in the paint, wipe it out on the paper towel, but this time do not dry brush the whole wings, but focus yourself on the vertical lines on the wings. While moving your brush, try to move it across those lines. Thanks to that, you'll paint the details without overpainting the rest of the wings. You may also use the side of your brush, that also gives you more control while you are painting. Now for the last dry brush step and the last highlight for the skin, take light flesh and white brush number 6 and use it on the peaks of the sculpture. Just a little bit to have those blicks of the light on that. Let's take care of the details. Take burnt umber and round brush size 2. Paint with it the teeth and the claws of the dragon. Now take the German camo and with the same brush paint the highlights on the same places to mark the light. Next, take Dektan and mark some blicks on the teeth and claws. For the eyes, we will paint them with 3 steps as well. First, take black paint and paint the eyes areas with it to mark the shadow. Then, take white and paint the eyeballs with it. When the white dry out, use yellow ink as wash and mark the eyes. Thanks to the white base coat, the yellow ink will make Dragon's eyes look very vibrant. As the dragon is now complete, take white brush size 10 and cover the base with black color. Try to be careful not to paint the transparent stand and to paint every crack on the base. It is our first layer, so it must be done thoroughly. After it gets dry, take burnt ember and make the first layer of highlights with dry brush. Later, add another layer of dry brush with parasite brown. And that's it! Your model is done!
I hope you guys like this painting tutorial. I really like the finished results. We are really curious about your results too, so tag us, Den of Imagination, in your social medias and share your results with us. And don't forget to smash the like button and let us know in the comment section what you think of it. See you guys, bye bye.